all new. AM1150 WTMP.com.
All right, brother.
All right. I gotta say, we got the A team in the house today. Mr. Howard Word himself is over there managing and engineering and making stuff happen. I'm not saying that the B team is
left.
Is a level below. I'm talking about the management, engineering.
Oh.
So Howard understands the way things go. He's not in training. He's not in training. So we got grade A, supervision and engineering management skills at the controls today. So thank you, Howard, for hanging out with us. Now I gotta go ahead and say right off the bat that hurricane thing, and this is Porch Talk Radio. I know folks understand. 1:00 on Saturday.
We just started talking.
What happens. We had the big changeover. The change all morning for 5 hours of liberal liberal pablum to some real stuff.
So buckle up, folks.
So
hang on.
The sun, when I left Tampa Terrace, the sun was out. It was shining. It was bright. And
Not because of you.
And I thought, we was in for, it was going to be the same all the way over here that time of day. The storm had passed and all that stuff had happened. And as soon as I left Tampa Terrace, the clouds, the rain, everything. So I don't know whether there was like a hole in the sky just over Temple Terrace, and it knew I was coming in to do this, what the deal was. But it was okay for a little while because I really thought last night I wasn't going to see the sun again until Monday. But again, it popped out over there in Temple Terrace and thank God, for the
here we are.
For a little bit, and I made it here, okay, and Gabriel's here, okay.
We got Tim.
And of course Tim is here. So as I was just telling, the young man that was sitting over there talking with Howard that we've been doing this for 10 years, and Gabriel's been here for 10 years, Tim been here for 10 years, I've been here for 10 years. And it took a little while for the audience here in Tampa to get used to us and understand what we're trying to do, because it's more important to move the community forward than it is to make a political statement. Mm-hmm. And I know, most of the shows that come on through the course of a day, they spend all their time making political statements, and they're trying to, and I'm gonna kind of say it, they spend more time trying to bamboozle you and whiz bang you, than they do trying to make sure that the community is healthy and everything is moving forward. I'm just saying, now you may see it differently, and I'm just go ahead and
we'll pray for you.
Say it as opposed to assuming that you get it, because again, one of the things we'll do, we're not politically correct, and we know you guys all know that we're not trying to be politically correct, so we rather make a statement and say it as the way we mean it, as opposed to throwing some subtle hints and hoping you get it, because I know a lot of times we don't get it. So I'm not gonna leave it up to fate. I'm gonna say what we mean. So that's a little different between us and a lot of the other shows. We're not gonna throw a bunch of hints out there. We know we're different. We know we talk with a conservative lean. Everybody in this room currently is Republican. So we're not making excuses for it. We just we just stating the obvious.
Somebody's got to pay the bills.
Proud Republicans, that too. So we got a few friends over the course of the week who have called and let me know that they're no longer Democrats. I know there's a big Brexit, black folks leaving the Democratic Party, exiting. But that's not what we're about. And I say it all the time. We're not here to recruit for the Republican Party, but what we're here is to put a message. Get the buzz out there, get a word out. And if you believe us and you change, that's up to you. But that's not why we do what we do. We just want you to have the right information. So when you make those decisions, you're making them because of the right reasons and not. You got a bunch of, pablum propaganda from the main force of the liberal left leaning media.
So again, Eddie, I think the objective here for us, we've been doing this 10 years now, you keep pointing out to everybody, we've been here a while, and we're always a Talk Radio show, not just because of the amazing talent that we possess after all these years. That's just not it. That keeps us the number one show.
Break your arm, pat yourself on the back.
But the whole objective is to bring information to people's front door, and make them decide in their own heads, as opposed to right now, we all understand that a lot of what's happening in the media is just their commentary, and there's a difference between commentary and journalism. Journalism requires research. They go look for the information, they find the information, and then they're free to publicly put that information out there for you to just say, well, okay, I like that, I don't like that, I'm going to do this, I want to do that. But you're the one in charge of what you're going to do. Now, unfortunately, right now, a lot of the media's gone and just telling you a story. And the problem is nobody's researched it. There's no journalism involved.
Well, I'm gonna say it like this: they go into the research, they go into the process having an idea of what the end result is gonna be. So if anybody who's done any research understands that if you know what you're looking for, you only look for stuff that feeds your previous thoughts about the process. You don't look at anything that's not already predetermined in your head that it should be.
And again, to that, I saw something recently that had from the last Democratic debate that happened a week or two ago.
They had one this week.
Okay, maybe that was it. And of course, there's no American flags on there because they don't represent America, but that's a separate story. But then they had a red circle with stars on it, and some fool, and I'll say fool, put a pentagram in the middle of that, and then put it out on Facebook. Oh, look, they're of the devil. Okay, that's stupid. Now, again, folks, if you don't do your research and go, well, that's just baloney, you'd go, wow, they really are really demonic. Some of them may be, but that's a separate story. But it's not that they had it out on display like that.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, and if you don't research, you can look, they go, that's stupid. But some people go, wow, there it is. It's on the internet, so it must be true.
Yeah, well,
there we go.
We're kind of ranting and raving here. I guess we need to start the show.
Who's our sponsors?
Since it's already been 10 minutes almost 10 minutes into the process.
I told everybody to put their seatbelts on.
So let's do this, okay? If you want to call in during the show, let's get the number out there. The call-in number for TMP is 813-251-9867. 813-251-9867. I mean, if you want to call during the show for the next hour, I'm going to be doing a radio show. So if you call me on my cell phone, I'm not going to be able to take your cell phone calls within the next hour. After that, I can take them, I can talk to you, I can do whatever you want. So many of you have my cell phone number already, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. For those who don't have the cell phone number, you want to write it down. Eddie Adams Jr., cell phone number 813-230-3312. And from time to time, I'm surprised at how many people have my cell phone number, because we've had situations where people want to call the show, but they don't have the show number, but they got my cell phone number. So, but the cell phone number been out there a while, and every now and then we have a situation where people really want to talk about something that I said on the show, or back up some information that I handed out or something like that. If you want to text me, text the cell phone. If you want to email me, it is Eddie, EDDIE, at porchtalkradio.com. So that's Eddie at porchtalkradio.com. That's if you want to email me. So if you want to just go to the website, porchtalkradio.com, that's out there also. So, we had a storm last night, even though it was kind of, let me say this, and don't nobody be offended, because I'm not intending to offend anybody in particular. I'm just going back to old school, but the storm was afflicted. I don't know, afflicted.
Is that a word?
Yeah, back in the old days, afflicted. Afflicted. Everybody used to call things afflicted. Okay, the eye was 300 miles away, but all the bad weather was on our shores. They kept saying, well, don't worry about the eye. The eye is 200 miles east of us or 200 miles west of us, and it's north of us. The eye way up here. But all the bad weather, we normally have hurricanes with bands and bands and bands of rain and lightning and tornadoes and all that stuff happening. But we got the bad weather. When I saw the eye on the map, the eye was clear. They ain't even have no clouds. I've never seen the eye of a hurricane where there was no clouds. The eye usually have no clouds, but it's got a big old 200 or 300 miles of clouds and stuff around it.
Business is kind of slow right now, Eddie. They gotta create things.
That eye to that hurricane.
It's that global warming thing from counterparting causing all that.
Nestler, the eye had no clouds. It had no clouds, and not only one side had no clouds at all, and the other side
it was invisible.
Had the bad weather.
No, it was an invisible thing.
So all the bad weather was we were getting the bad weather, and on the other side, there was nothing. It was just
it's like climate change. It's invisible, but it affects you.
Just Nestler. So, but anyway. That's my weather commentary. So
thank you. The weatherman has spoken. There was a storm out there, but it wasn't there.
Yeah, there was a storm out there somewhere. We got all the bad weather. We got more bad weather from the storm that was supposed to have missed us than we did when the storm was supposed to have been here.
Mm-hmm.
The storm. We had a storm a couple of months ago, hurricane, and we supposed to got bad weather, but we got none.
Well, and again, business is slow for them, Eddie. They got nothing going on. They see a little burp out there in the ocean somewhere. Oh, that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, really. But anyway, all right. I went to an event. I went to an NAACP meeting Thursday, and we had Leroy Moore, who's with the Tampa Housing Authority. He's big wig with the Tampa Housing Authority, and what he talked about was. It was kind of a community forum without being a community forum, if you know how the NAACP meetings go. It was an opportunity for people to stand up and comment, just comment, on a condition. And even though they were talking about a particular thing, they were talking about the Zion Cemetery, it was something about this particular conversation that applies to kind of black folks all over the country because, part of what was said and part of what's factual about this circumstance is this was a black cemetery, the first black cemetery for the city of Tampa. It was owned at one time by a black businessman who owned the property, and he turned it into a cemetery, about 2.5 acres. Well, a Confederate white officer, again, we say black and white, we don't want you to be confused. A Confederate white officer took this black businessman to court and took the land. He actually took the cemetery from the black guy. Now, who the hell...
Explain took. You mean he bought it?
No, he took it. He took it to court and took the land.
That's stupid.
Like a foreclosure or something. But some kind of legal tactic was used to take the cemetery. And over a... Now, this guy had... the numbers vary, but someone said, 800 people in caskets in the ground. A cemetery, Zion Cemetery. All of them, let me say it like this, most of them black. Because from what the information that was given, Thursday night at the meeting, that somehow, again, Zion, the area that the Zion Cemetery was in was a white area back in 1901.
So they reclaimed it.
Well, again, not so much because, they putting the black folks in the ground, and this was the only black cemetery in Tampa at that time. So, like I say, they put 800 some people in the ground, and then there was a court battle, and I guess in the 19 teens, somewhere between 2011 and 2020, this black guy lost the property. So for 9 or 10 years, they putting black folks in the ground. And then they got some kind of legal dispute in which a judge gave the property to a white guy.
So legally, it ended up being okay, but actually for what was done with the property, the guy...
It was a cemetery.
Well, and again, the guy just kind of thought he would just plant right over it.
No. Again,
he didn't remove the graves.
That's why this become a historical issue involving black folks all over the country. You know, some white guy decided he wanted the property. He guess he had a better uses of it. You know, disrespectful of the fact that you had people in the ground. But over a period of time, the cemetery part of it got lost.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that
magic.
Say.
Poof.
You know, I'm just gonna say over a period of time, it was a 2.5 acre cemetery, and somehow it got parceled up. Somehow the Tampa Housing Authority ended up with part of it, and 2 other private citizens ended up with part of it, and there's a warehouse, parking lots, buildings.
And nobody knew the history.
Well, now according to the information that we got on Thursday night, that back in 1951, 3 caskets while they was putting in the foundation for some buildings showed up. Now I'm gonna tell you guys, it hadn't been Apache or Seminole, Navajo Indians or something, you know, this whole thing would have stopped and been halted for 20-some years. They'd did all the research and all the development and had every anthropologist, you know, in the state or in the country here to making sure that graves were preserved and protected and all that kind of stuff. But these were black folks.
Mm-hmm.
So that go to tell you the value that society, you know, and I know, and you know, back in 1900, you know, the wealth and the power of black folks was actually pretty much non-existent. And so again, in 1951, you know, they discovered 3 caskets in the ground while they're trying to put down footers for some buildings. I was told that the caskets were removed and they went on with their building. So currently there's 5 property buildings that belongs to the Tampa Housing Authority on their part of the property. So of the 2.5 acres, I think the Tampa Housing Authority owns like an acre of it. Okay. So the property that they own definitely has caskets in the ground. So it's nothing that led them to believe, or anybody else to believe, that for some reason or other, any of the other caskets were exhumed and removed before they got built on and before the property got used.
So all they got to do is get the other acre back.
For commercial use. No. It ain't that simple. Again, how they who? First of all, they who?
Well, our city has to give up theirs, say it's a cemetery.
Wait. See, you got to understand. The city of Tampa said they got nothing to do with it. Nobody was there that spoke Thursday, represented the city of Tampa. From what I gather, you know, the mayor has been pretty much silent, not speaking out about the situation at all. Now I may be speaking, so if somebody know more about this in the city, you know, you got the right to call in the show, and I'm going to actually give the number out again because I normally only give the number out once, but I'm going to give the number 813-251-9867. If they know something more about the city of Tampa, you know, and the fact that we had this black cemetery that was disrespected to the nth degree. I mean, matter of fact, you know, when you put footers down in the ground and you discover bones of any, it could have been a reindeer bone, a dog bone, a mammoth bone, or any kind of bone. They didn't have to be people, you know.
Well, and I think I saw part of that. They televised some of that, Eddie, and I saw that, and I was really in shock that the city showed up completely unprepared, pretty much asking the other person, what do you think about it? And the city just did horrible. They did horrible on that because they showed them on camera with the representative of the city and we don't know what to do.
Well, I'm not trying to blame anybody.
I'm just saying what I saw on TV, and they seem very lost and not very concerned.
Now is the time, and I think at some point in time, and I said this at the meeting, you know, to several people that was there, and there were some significant people at the meeting. Senator Janet Cruz were there. and she introduced, said she was in the process of trying to introduce some bill in Tallahassee, that would deal with these type of situations all over the state, because this is Tampa, which is in the state of Florida, a big city, but you got some one-horse towns out in the middle of nowhere, that probably, half the village sits on some black
This can't
cemetery.
be the only place in time it's ever happened.
Well, no, and that's what I'm saying. This is something that affects the entire country, and it's happening all over the country. It's a lot of disrespect, for the families of black folks who got buried, not even 100 years ago. But you're talking about, something that may have happened 300 or 400 years ago. In some places, they still got the respect of them being the final resting places for folks.
But
here,
a good calling question for anybody. Say, what do you do now? You found it. What do you do? Do you turn it back over to make it into a cemetery? Do you give the property back?
No.
What do you do with it? Dig up the bodies, go put them somewhere else?
No, part of this whole process. Again, we talking about something that actually happened. We ain't talking about a fake meeting. We're talking about a meeting that they gave out information on Thursday night. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm talking about what do you do now? You discovered it.
Well, folks who were there. See, now this is something you may not be able to talk about because you don't know anything about the meeting. My conversation.
I'm not talking about that. Saying, what do we do now?
That's what they were saying. Part of the property is owned by Tampa Housing Authority.
Mm-hmm.
Tampa Housing Authority is planned to do what they consider to be the right thing, which is see how many more bodies there lie in the ground there, because some estimates say that there may be 1,000 bodies there, because there was part of it that became a pauper's field. And if you know what a pauper's field, I mean, if you ain't got money to get buried, they put you in this plot of land, but they dug a hole and wrap you up and put you in there. You didn't even get a casket. So they don't know how many of those bodies are there. All they know is that one area of the cemetery was called a pauper's field. And what they did, was, people who didn't have the wherewithal to have a proper burial got buried there. Again, that's why they don't know how many people were there. So at some point in time, and again, I'm hopefully paraphrasing properly, the Tampa Housing Authority planned to have a next level study done where they would go in, do some digging, because these were just ground penetrating x-rays that they did. They didn't do any ground penetrating x-rays where there was concrete. So where the buildings are, they don't know how many bodies or caskets are under the buildings. They only did it in the open field. So in the open field, this appeared to be an organized cemetery with the bodies and the caskets lined up. In rows and intact, and again, nothing that they came up with says anything otherwise. So again, only owning a third of the property, the other 2/3 of the property owned by private citizens. Again, at some point in time, the city, county, state, somebody with some governmental jurisdiction power needs to step in and take control, or at least administer so that the right thing will be done. And I'm not saying take the people's property, but if it's a cemetery and they got dead bodies under the ground there, again, that was definitely disrespect for the families of those people who are still buried there. And it's only so many things you could do, and if you dig them up to move them, that's just as bad, as anything else that anybody may come up with, because then you disturbing the rest of those folks who
Eddie, I think logically thinking it through, I think logically they do need to be moved, because if they're right in the middle of a parking lot with all this stuff around,
the parking lot
do anything with that.
The parking lot can go a lot easier than it is to dig up somebody's body. I'm just telling you, we want to do something else with the land. We want to dig these people up. They don't do it for nobody else in this country. You ain't gonna dig up nobody for a parking lot or for a building or for anything else. What they do is they take the buildings off the graveyards and they preserve the graveyard. I'm just telling you what they do. If them would have been white folks.
But again, they're going to go, white folks or whoever's going to go by. What's the law say they can do?
Well, the law, that's what we're saying. That's why the city, county, state, federal government needs to get involved, because those folks set the precedence, and the presidents now state that they shouldn't have been able to build and put parking lots and warehouses.
But now we're beyond that.
Over a graveyard. But what I'm saying, how do you correct that? You don't ignore it. Well, again, I say come up with some way to maybe compensate these people for the property. But what you don't do, you don't allow it to continue what's happening. You take those 2.5 acres, which ain't gonna kill nobody, and make it a cemetery. You make it what it started.
I don't think that's the right thing, Eddie, because if it's in the middle of some little business park, you're not going to have a free cemetery.
Well,
right
they got cemeteries all up and down Florida Avenue. You can't say that. I'm sorry. They got a cemetery in the middle of downtown Tampa. Again, that has nothing to do. The uses of the property surrounding the cemetery don't have nothing to do with the people in the cemetery.
But it's up to the owners to decide. If there's no law telling them different, they can do what they want. Say, forget it. I'm just going to dig them up and I'm going to put my parking lot back down.
My point keep being you're not hearing. Yeah, the people may be hearing, but Gabriel, you're not hearing. I'm saying the city, county, state government, entity, somebody with authority got to get involved, because it's not up to just some business owner who owns the property. We own property all over the place. If somebody misused the property, somebody put some uranium there, I guarantee you wouldn't be fighting to keep the warehouse and the people working there, because they all get sick and die. I'm just saying.
I thought Mrs. Casco was going to be helping out in the community and such.
Well, see, again, I'm not calling names. I'm just saying they need to have some kind of forum where people,
don't want to upset politicians' feelings.
That has authority, get involved and make some stuff happen.
She is our employee, though.
Because the housing authority, Tampa Housing Authority, is trying to do the right thing with resources. I mean, because right now they're losing 1/8 of their residents, because they got the people who actually live in those units. Those units are gonna be taken down. Those units are gonna be taken down.
Well, now they also said there was kind of haunted stuff happening too. Now that's kind of weird.
But again, I'm not entertaining that. Okay, I'm talking about the face of the property that Tampa Housing Authority said they would like to do. The property they own, the right thing. We make that some kind of sacred community.
So, folks, what do you say? Make it back to the cemetery or get them out?
Folks don't have to have no final say. Again,
well, the politicians are supposed to be employees. Remember?
Again, okay. I am not trying to put blame. It's not about blame. It ain't about that, and we're not gonna say that anymore. What it's about now is how do we do, and what is the right track? What is the right tack? How do we do this? Because if somebody's family member is there, I'm telling you right now, those people feel differently about the situation than everybody else that's on the outside looking in, coming up with our Sunday or Saturday, communication, trying to help people, feel good about a bad situation. There's no good way to feel about this, and you cannot, and I'm saying this, and I'm saying it on the radio, and I'm saying it for a lot of people to hear, you cannot dig those people up, because from what the records show, they were supposed to have been dug up before, and somehow they took 12 bodies, dug them up, and put them somewhere else, and let the other 800, 900 people stay there, stay in the ground. And that's people, I don't know whether they meant well or they didn't mean well, but they dug up 12 bodies and took them somewhere else that they got records of, and left the other bodies there. So again, that's people having humane circumstances and thinking we're going to do the right thing, and we're going to dig up, these bodies and move them and somehow report it. Well, we cleared the cemetery out. We took all the bodies and put them somewhere else. So now we can build.
All they were looking for.
Now we can build and do what we want with the property. And that to me is the crux of this situation, and it's why it's so bad, and it's man inhumanity to man. Maybe the fact that black men had less humanity than other humans at that time, but that's the situation, and that's how I see it. It had it been anybody else, like I say, Indians, it could have been some brontosaurus bones or stegosaurus bones, or it could have been antelope bones. It could have been, they know that those were people.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did they know the people, they were people in caskets. There were some people that were without caskets, but they know that was a cemetery. And again, for 100 years, it's been mishandled. And Tampa Tribune, I think it's Tampa Tribune, I may miss the source of the newspaper, but someone did the research and reported the story, and that's how it became, made the public aware. And somebody did the research and say, y'all know that there are bodies there. There are people buried under these houses. There's people buried under these warehouses. And I believe,
Eddie, with all that being said, that the politicians that have gotten involved so far have spoken, and the ones that have not have spoken. I don't see anything changing anytime soon, buddy. It's up to the people to make noise.
Well, again, what we're trying to determine is whether or not this is something we need to have a community forum and get more folks.
Because the politicians could have a great opportunity to jump in and do something to make it happen. And since it hasn't happened to this point, I think they've already spoken.
You're trying to make it something that it ain't.
I'm just being honest, Eddie. If they were concerned, they would have done something already. They would have jumped in right away and said, you know what, we're going to fix it.
They have done something, they ignored it. So no action is action. It's
That's what I'm saying.
Again, if the community is not upset about this, and I know,
you're right, you got that one.
And I know many people in the community are upset, and the folks who showed up at the meeting, on Thursday were concerned, and that's probably why, we had the meeting. The Tampa Housing Authority has already spent are spending over $100,000 of monies from their coffer trying to do or make sure the right thing happens, but they only can do it with their third of the property. You got 2/3,
I got it.
Of the cemetery that's got bodies in the ground, under concrete, under asphalt, under whatever else that is under, that's not having the proper thing done, and that becomes the issue. And over the next year and a half, 2 years, and this is something that came up too, and I'm gonna say it, say it on radio for people who have power and influence will listen to this show. Super Bowl. We talk about the Super Bowl here on this show all the time.
Make
Super
money,
Bowl
folks.
In 2021. Again, we don't want to get 60 Minutes, 2020, some of those national talk shows. Somebody trying to make a name for themselves to come down and do a story, because I remember a few years ago when they had Super Bowl and the Gasparilla Parade and Bambaleo and all that kind of stuff about white folks being prejudiced in Tampa. It got the national media, got everybody's attention, because places in California and Washington State and Chicago and other places in the country, people, we may have pacified black folks that's okay with here. Other parts of the country, they may take it differently. We got a caller. Welcome to Porch Talk Radio this Saturday afternoon, caller. What say you? Give us your name and where you calling from. Thank you for calling. Hello?
Name, Joe Robinson from West Tampa.
Joe,
man.
welcome. And you need to get me that info too, so call me back.
Yeah, on the book. All right, we'll get to that. But on this cemetery, we got another one over at King High School just popped up the last 48 hours.
Yeah, pop up Thursday night.
Yeah, so that's going to be another fiasco. Because the school board claimed they're going to set up a committee and all this. But the housing authority is setting the model for how you do this. Okay, they got the plan down right. They're doing it the right way, and they show respect to the black community. And they're going to make a memorial of this and that and that and that. So I think the housing authority, I give my hat off to them, because they're doing it the proper way. And it costs money to do all that archaeological surveying and ground penetrating radar and all of that and so forth. But switching to another stuff, this Super Bowl, NAACP met with Ms. Lakeisha Robinson, that's in charge of the Super Bowl, and making sure vendors get their opportunities. And she said that they're going to be putting out applications, launching something in November. And so you need to try to schedule her to get on your show, and she can explain what she's doing and what she's getting ready to do, because she's sat down with NAACP. We had a one-on-one, Betty Lewis type meeting, like that is. And got that moving.
Yeah, I know.
So we got that moving, and I get back. We had to been out of pocket, man, out the state, doing some stuff, and had to take care of a lot of stuff going on. And we just had our FRA conference this week, so I'm a little bit back to normal now, but I just want to call in and let everybody know, we got another cemetery over there somewhere on the school district. Now, we're going to see if the school district step up to the plate and do like the housing authority and get this thing straight. What they're going to do, if it is on the property of King High School, because what it was a legal description that was done wrong. Instead of saying, I guess, east, it should have said west. So something wrong with the legal description. that happens. That happens.
But Joe, I kind of had heard something about it that I guess it came up on the radar Thursday night. You know, the Zion thing happened Thursday night, and they had this public thing, and then we had Janet Cruz and some folks from the Housing Authority and a couple other folks, you know, that was at this meeting. And somehow this other say, well, that ain't the only one. And then next thing you know, the King High School cemetery thing came up.
Well, my understanding is from talking to Vet Lewis, who heard all first, there's probably 4 or 5 around him.
Yeah.
And this ain't the end of it.
Right.
And this is not just unique to Tampa. This has been going on all around the country, anywhere. You've had this early black renaissance back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, when Reconstruction was in it and going on, that this stuff started happening. So, and then what happened is that after you had the Reconstruction, that's when all these people start losing this property,
right,
and going back to the Confederate or whoever you say, and trying to swim them because they might have took a loan out of stuff and they foreclosed on it and that, because it was segregated. So I'm just saying, man, black folks got taken part of it. But this is what happens when you don't keep up with your black history.
And the other thing, Joe, while I got you on the phone, is that there's a respect for life, and back in the early teens, you know, 1920, 1930, 1910, back in those time periods, when black folks actually owned property, you know, then we went through the time period where everybody, you know, took, when literally there was a taking of property from black folks all over the country, and it was a trending.
Yep, it's called the Ku Klux Klan came back to rock.
Yeah, trending.
Okay. You know, if you go back and look at what was the name of that movie they're talking about with the Klan out of Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
That was the deal right there in the 20s. So that's part of that movie shot right in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
Part of that was shot in Tampa, Florida. So Birth of a Nation and the Klan coming back, that would start messing all this property up and everything else. So I'm going to just leave it at that for somebody else to call in. But get that lady Katrina Robinson on the show, man. And she can tell what's really going to happen with the Super Bowl, and that they're going to really do something. And she got it going on, because the NAACP done had a come to Jesus meeting with her and Yvette Lewis, and I was there to witness the whole thing. And she understands where people coming from around here, and I think they're going to do something. So if not, we'll do something.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, my friend.
Appreciate it. All right.
God bless.
All right. And that's what I'm talking about. There's a time period, you know, all this stuff that's happening here in the Tampa Bay area, you know, it's not just exclusive to Tampa Bay. And there's been areas where people have done the research and found that there have been, you know, black cemeteries, and people have built whole housing developments.
That's amazing.
Over them.
Just amazing.
You know, they build just come in and say, okay, well, we know some black folks, you know, so we know it's a cemetery, but we want to build, you know, 20, 30,000 houses, and nobody would know it, you know, in 10, 15 years, you know, that, you know, there was a cemetery here. Mm-hmm. And that's what, you know, happened. Improper taking and keeping of records. That's one thing that Leroy said about the Tampa Housing Authority. Tampa Housing Authority got minutes from meetings where they mentioned black folks came and complained about the properties and what was being done with some of the properties and stuff, you know, but they didn't have names. So they only took, you know, some black folks showed up at city council, or black folks showed up at county commission or at the board meeting, and they filed complaints, or they had complaints, you know,
mm-hmm.
but these was in the minutes of the meeting, but nothing that they can point to directly as Mr. Joe Smith, Joe Blow, you know, Bubba Nelson, or somebody, okay. You know, what they can go historically and dig and dabble into. So again, there was a period where black folks actually owned stuff, and because of financial opportunities, you know, changing, somebody died in the family, and the kids inherited the property.
Yeah.
Something of that nature happened where there was a transfer of title, transfer of deed, and the original owners of the property didn't do something right. They got sued or foreclosed, and they got transferred. And next thing you know, this big open patch of level land with headstones on it, all got mowed under, plowed under, and they've done that before. They've done that before.
Wow, that's amazing.
They literally plowed under the headstones. They had a team go out there, this week it's a cemetery, next week it's a big open field. And 10 years, 20 years from there, it's all growed up. And then somebody purchased the land, without knowing, because, some of these graves are 6 feet under, some of these graves are 18 inches, foot and a half underground. So it depends on the attitude of the people at that time. And we know we got some fighters here in Tampa Bay. I hope I don't have to call folks out as to what we need to do as a community. I think everybody knows and got a good feeling what the right thing is, what we need to do. And the Tampa Housing Authority got the right idea. All the information coming out from the Tampa Housing Authority, and like I say, they it's already recorded that they will spend going to spend over $100,000 trying to do the right thing. Now, whether or not the school board is going to spend that kind of money trying to do the right thing is a whole other animal.
Because they're always broke.
Because the Tampa Housing Authority is a different kind of entity. Whereas the school board got voted, politicians on it, and everybody got political interests that may be different, and again, it's seen differently, and how they do and how they treat this situation. I can almost assure that it's going to be different than the Tampa Housing Authority. But hopefully, there are some folks who intend to do the right thing. Now, it's one thing to say we want to do the right thing, another thing to actually do the right thing.
That follow through always gets kind of sketchy. And I understand you're telling one of the organizations here really is doing what they can with it. Now we just need to have the politicians come on board, get involved, and just see that it gets done. And obviously they can allocate money from other sources if they need to, as opposed to just one organization trying to bear all the expense.
Well, the school board has money, so
they always say they're broke if you talk to them much.
Yeah, but they just got a bill where they flushing the community. They got a transportation bill. They had money there. They got their own pot of money. That's being garnered. And again, every now and then, I'm gonna tell you something. There's something that's always called miscellaneous. Which means there's something that came up that's not in your budget, wasn't planned on happening. I'm quite sure finding a black cemetery on your property wasn't in their plan. But I'm quite sure, somewhere along the way there's some money that they can find or appropriate or come up with. If not in this budget, next one, because again, unless they do something, they'll still be in the ground next year. They'll still be in the ground the following year. So if it ain't in the budget this year, then put it in the budget next year or the following year. But folks are going to be watching. I'm making sure.
It's kind of do this cease and desist right now. Everything they're doing on that property. It's
it's a school.
Horrible.
Well, King High School.
They can't shut the school down.
Well, we don't know if it's sitting on the track or sitting in the middle of the football field or the cafeteria. I mean, all intents and purposes don't know because they haven't done the
research,
the ground penetrating radar to determine exactly if they got bodies and where the bodies are and stuff. And the thing about the Tampa Housing Authority, they can tell you because of the type of ground penetrating radar that they use, they can tell where the caskets are. Okay. They cannot tell you where the people who are buried who don't have caskets, because they don't have nails in them. They don't have the body of the casket, which is what shows up in the ground penetrating radar.
Okay.
Bones over a period of 100 years, some of them come in different shapes and different sizes and different densities, and it may be a skull here and a leg there and a foot there, and I'm just saying. I
haven't had lunch yet, sir, so we kind of limit that a little bit.
Yeah, well, what's in the ground itself, they don't know at King. So they only know partially what's in the ground at Zion because they got caskets.
Got it.
And they had nails in them and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, thank you guys for listening. This is something that the community at large, the black community, us folks here at Porch Talk, we talk about stuff that involves the community, how we move the community forward. How do we get to stick together? How do we find topics that affect everybody. It's not
how can y'all come together on something particular, making a difference on it?
It's not Democrat and not Republican.
Yeah, people get involved in their own community.
Yes, black folks, and this is something that somebody may hear and get offended, by it, but it's the reality of it, and that's the thing I'm concerned about is if there's a disrespect, and I don't care who you are, for them to put a warehouse and parking lot and buildings over the bodies of folks who they know. I mean, it's one thing somebody didn't know. In 1951, they found 3 caskets in the ground. I mean, common sense would have told me if I'd have gave a damn, it may be more, but they didn't do any more research and development. It's just that those 3 caskets laid in the line of a footer that they were putting in the ground to put up a building. So again,
here we are.
And I know I'm an architect in my other life, so I know people hate to find bones of any kind when they start digging in the ground, preparing for buildings, and the contractor don't want to get held up. So I don't know if they just hid it from folks or they ignored it, But somebody knew because there's record that 3 bodies and caskets were pulled up out of the ground. So the fact that they didn't think there may be more, the history of Zion, the history is probably clearer then in 1951 than it is now, another 50, 60, 70 years later. So I'm just saying the records were probably clearer then, and there was probably still people alive who knew the history of Zion back in 1951 as opposed to now, where we're probably sure most of those folks are dead, and if they're not dead,
about there, they're about there.
God bless them. They didn't have much of a memory for what was happening back then. But
that's it. All right.
It's important, and again, we're gonna do on this day in history. We're gonna go ahead and get that done.
Let's get it done.
And then anything that you want to talk about, Gabriel, I give you a couple minutes to go ahead and do that. So,
all right.
So at this point in time, on this day, October the 19th, on this day, 1933, basketball was introduced to the 1936 Olympic Games by the Berlin Organization Committee. So if you guys remember 1936, it was 1932 when Jesse Owens and all those folks set all those records.
That was BG before Gabriel, so I'll go with that.
Yeah, and black folks actually became, gold medal winners, with Hitler in the stands and all that kind of stuff. All right. On this day, October the 19th, 1944, the U.S. Navy announced that black women would be allowed into women accepted for volunteer emergency services. And if you want to know what that stands for, the waves. Remember? The Navy had the waves, which was the women, and they used to be all white. Well, back in 1944, the Navy started allowing black women to be waves.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, on this day, 1951, in October 19th, 1951, the U.S. President Truman signed an act officially ending the state of war with Germany. So we actually ended the war with Germany in 1951 on this day. Also, on this date, and this is one a lot of folks may remember, on October the 19th, in 1960, the U.S. imposed an embargo on exports to Cuba, covering all commodities except medical supplies and certain food products. So the Cuban embargo went into effect on this date. And last but not least, on October the 19th, 1983, the U.S. Senate approved a bill establishing a national holiday in honor of Martin Luther King Jr.
83. That was Reagan era.
Yeah.
So that was a Republican Congress again led. Republicans done so much to help the minorities in general. It's been amazing over history, just following it back. But going forward to today, right now. What's in the news all everywhere, guys? The Middle East thing. If any of you guys know any history, if you ever read this thing called the Holy Bible, if you notice in there, there's been a war in the Middle East even before the Bible was created. So it's always been going on, and there are just groups of people out there that just don't like each other. So it's just not logical for us to be paying for to send our people over there into something that's never worked out. And by the way history looks at it, it'll never work out anyway. But yet we've been throwing our money on it.
Democrats want to send our people over there.
Ain't that the craziest thing?
Democrats.
Didn't they used to be the make love, not war thing, and the peace symbol? And now they become warmongers?
Well, they're trying to be relevant.
Well, that ain't working, folks. I know we got enough people on this listen to us that have common sense to go, well, they've only fought in the Middle East since Bible times.
They started that war 5,000 years ago, according to some folks.
So if anyone's kept track of even just a little bit of it, to understand that the CIA was providing weapons to the Kurdish rebels over there. CIA, that's us, okay? Now, also understand that the Pentagon was funding military weapons to the militia, which was fighting the Kurds.
Selling ammunition and
training, probably.
Death to both sides.
Yeah. No, but now if y'all just stop and think, I've only said two things. The Kurds were being funded and provided weapons by our CIA, and then their opponent, the enemy to them, the militia, was being funded by our Pentagon and providing them weapons and training. But yet the United States has a contract with Syria, the country that these two bad groups are in, and we have a contract through the UN to protect Syria from war.
Yep.
So it's a three-way, and we're funding it.
Not a good three-way.
Not at all.
Bad three-way.
Thanks for clarifying that, Eddie. Anyway, but just saying, it's just bad all around, and yet they just want our money to continue to be thrown at it. Now, folks, if we have a debt, and somebody called in a couple of shows ago and said Mr. Trump's taking the debt way high, although he didn't make any noise when Trump doubled it beforehand, when Mr. Obama doubled it, but that's a separate story. But okay, fine. But we're helping these other countries, and everybody wants us to help other countries because we got money. Well, I don't know about you folks out here listening today, but if you have to borrow money to give to other countries, then that would mean you don't have money. Now, just stick with me here. We're borrowing trillions off of China, year in, year out, and we're paying them interest. We're making payments on that. We haven't been late on any payments. We're making our payments. So we're paying them so they can go ahead and fund their military against us. Now, I know we got enough common sense. People go, wait a minute, so we borrow money to give it away? So if your neighbor needs $5,000 and you go to your bank so you can get $5,000 to give to your neighbor, and you're making the payments on it, and then your neighbor decides to go and run off, you're the one with the payments. These countries in the UN, over half, 75% of them, hate us. But we pay them money every year to give them, help their people out. Well, and they vote against us every time.
That's always been a negotiation and a tool of the United States government.
A weapon.
Of selling aid, selling.
That's called quid pro quo, right?
That's what they're talking about. The country, we ain't just started doing that. We probably been doing. Hell,
we might have invented it.
George Washington was doing American aid to countries all over the world, and expecting them to act a certain way for our help. I mean, that's what that's called. So the fact that it's now happening in D.C. and everybody's saying, "Oh, well, that's new and different." No, it ain't. They've been doing it since the very beginning. Of selling aid and selling our influence and using our money to make
countries perform.
Ask other countries to do stuff for the country, be it for us directly or for us indirectly. I'm just saying.
So if we just stuck to what I initially started with, on just saying, why are we in the Middle East to begin with? Now, there was mentioned Friday, I believe, that Mrs. Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, asked why did Trump approve for Saudi Arabia to get our military over there, and Mr. Trump responded, because they're paying.
Well, I think they've been getting our military for 60 or
A
70 years.
long
It's
time.
been a long time.
But they're paying. And you know what? That kind of rubbed me wrong because why are we for hire? So that's a separate story right there, folks. All together.
We've always been for hire. That's the problem.
But then the other side of the coin is why are we just giving money away, which is military and resources and our lives, literally, being put on the line for these other countries that hate us, that have always hated us, that are always will hate us, and yet we're funding all of that, and nothing ever gets better. And some of these warmongers in the Congress want to be there forever. Just because maybe they're getting commissions, kickbacks, I don't know. But they just keep funding this military thing and these wars. And we got a guy in there right now in Washington, D.C. that says, wait a minute, why are we over there? Why don't we get the heck out? Let's save our bodies, let's save our money, and let's go do something else and stop borrowing from China someday.
I think the issue becomes, and this is what a lot of folks don't see, especially Democrats, is Democrats are trying to find issues that make them relevant, and war has always been one of them kind of issues.
That always gets support. You're right about that one.
They always been against the war because Republicans are traditionally for the war and then for the war machine.
Why was Muammar Gaddafi taken out?
It's more the machine than it is anything else. And there's a lot of money in defense, in arming and disarming.
Billions.
And the fact that, as opposed to, and I didn't say this, but they had a debate this week. The Democrats had 12 folks up there who were vying to be president debating. And from what I saw of the debate,
what was useful?
No issues came up that was relevant
or practical
to the American people. Because the issues that they're debating don't get anybody's attention and don't serve anybody any good. I'm just saying, because the environment, the environment, everybody's an environmentalist. Okay, well, at the end of the day, they've been using that for 60 years, and every time they come up with, the sea is going to rise, so-and-so is not going to be here, the temperature of the ocean is going to rise.
Al Gore 30 years ago said the water's going to raise over the top of our heads.
All of that stuff has been around, and I'm like this. If somebody tell you something's going to happen, give you a date and time. That date and time comes and goes, and you can see that they lied, that they was incorrect with the information, that it was flawed. You get the chance to say, okay, well, what happened? Well, they get to give you another excuse, and then the next time another excuse. So every 10 years, they keep updating the excuses, but at the end of the day, for you to believe that we as people, property, entities, part of the planet Earth, that we are changing, because we can't control no hurricane. We couldn't even control that little storm last night that came through, but we can control the freezing and cooling of the Earth. We just can't. I'm telling you, man got a lot of power. He don't have that kind of power. If tomorrow the Earth started freezing, we couldn't stop it. If tomorrow the sun had a flare, and that flare sends a stroke, a wave of energy to the Earth, whatever side of the Earth it hit is gonna burn up. I'm sorry. We can do some things, but
Eddie, you get this gloom and bloom thing here, gloom and
I'm just
gloom
saying,
thing here, and let's grab our ankle and say good luck.
Half of them are running as environmentalists.
But I think you're right that the whole purpose of this climate control, from a political standpoint, there's a lot of people that believe there could be something going on, and I can say that. Okay, there could be something going on. No proof of any.
But
the
it
UN,
ain't us. It ain't us.
We can't stop it. That's true. The UN just had a report out a few months ago that said, from their chief science, said this global thing, warming, it's climate change thing, it's no. Well, it's really not.
Well, they got to get the Chinese.
And this is the UN.
They got to get the Chinese to wake up. And again,
you kidding? They're balling with our money that we're paying them because we borrow money and give other countries.
Don't care about the environmentalists. Those places are doing the most harm to the planet. So as opposed to them spending time, energy, trying to deal with us. Us folks here at Porch Talk say go to the people who are causing the most problem, because you know who they are. It ain't like you don't know. It ain't like this stuff happening in a vacuum. The heaviest polluters, the ones who pollute the air,
all the other
water,
countries but us, India,
polluting the air,
China,
polluting the water. polluting, food,
But
all
we're going to
those
stop
pollutions
eating
are out
here
there.
and take off all electricity and put our cars and park them, and it's going to make things better.
All right, well, it's that time again. So again, thank you for listening. And next week we're gonna have a guest on. We got somebody running for U.S. Congress over in Pinellas, black female Republican. So
Awesome.
So
Common sense to the table. We love it.
We're gonna get some politics here and a little bit more than usual, and we're gonna talk about the Super Bowl and some other stuff. So thank you. We love you. Until next week when we do this again. Bye bye.
God bless America.
Bye bye. See ya.
What are they doing? They just checked out. They said, see ya. Did they? Goodbye. Yeah.